Okay, so Socrates is talking about the value of writing, and he says that he thinks putting your ideas in a book is like writing your name in water. Just disappears, goes away from you. Who knows what happens to it after that? It just gets washed away. But putting your ideas in actual minds, and not random minds either, but the right kind of people, right? People that you've chosen to give your ideas to. Just like I've chosen to share a lot of thoughts with you guys. I mean, he says that's a way to make things last forever. Now, I'm going to point out something. This is going to be a little gross, by the way. Um, I'll point out to you now because Socrates is talking about. He says the farmer who plants his seeds in soil is like the person. He says the farmer can plant his seeds in the right kind of soil, a farm, or in the wrong kind of soil, like a window box in the city. And the crops, if you put them in a window box in the city, they're going to die. But if you put them in a farm, they'll live. He says the same thing with thoughts. That ideas you got, if you put them in the wrong, if you give your ideas to the wrong kind of people, they'll die in there. If people aren't ready for them, if they're not paying attention, if they don't understand what you're talking about. But if you give it to the right kind of people who are able to follow you, then your ideas will live on. Um, the word Socrates is comparing a farmer's seeds to a writer's ideas. In ancient Greece, they believed that ideas were like seeds. Um, the way that the metaphor worked is they would say that putting an idea in your mind is like planting a seed in the ground, right? Because if I give you an idea now, maybe it's not that big a deal. But if you wait a year, wait 8 months, and see if that idea I gave you turns into something later, it may grow in your mind once it's been planted there. Um, what's funny is that the ancient Greek, you guys have heard of a seminar? A seminar is a kind of fancy classroom. It really just means a seminar is really just a class, but it's often used in college to mean like a special fancy kind of class for fancy kids. It's called a seminar. Ooh, we're doing a series, but it's really just you go to class. It's called a seminar. Um, the word seminar, the SEM in seminar, comes from the ancient Greek word that means seed. Guess what the ancient Greek word that means seed is? I hate to tell you this, brace yourself. It's semen. Of course it is. Of course it is. The SEM in seminar is the same SEM in semen, because the idea is the seminar puts ideas in your brain, and the Greek word for plants ideas in your brain, like you plant a seed, and the Greek word for seed is semen, which is why it's in ancient Greece they thought like basically semen was baby seeds, and you're planting your baby seeds in some lady's vagina, which is the farm. That was the metaphor. That was what they thought about it. Like, I don't know. They also thought ancient Greek people, they had all kinds of, they weren't really good at science. They didn't have microscopes and shit. So they actually thought that in semen there were little babies, like little tiny babies inside semen, and that the man kind of injected them into the woman through sex, and then the woman would sort of bake them like an oven. They didn't understand that, like we know now that a baby is made of a combination of semen and eggs from the woman. Um, and it's a combination. Your genetics are getting combined. But the ancient Greeks didn't think that. They thought that there were little tiny babies in semen, and that you put them into the woman, and then the little babies would get bigger, and then like cooking in there, like baking, and then you would take them out of the oven. And they literally thought that was true. It's a That's what they thought. Aristotle. Actually, that's funny. You know who said that? Aristotle said that. Remember Plato? Plato. Oh, sorry, Socrates. Socrates' student was Plato. You know Plato and Socrates couldn't read them all semester. Plato's student was Aristotle, and Aristotle was the guy who said babies are just little tiny babies inside men's ejaculate that gets put into a lady, and then that lady cooks it like an oven, because that was what Greek people thought was not super great for women. Um, the point is that there's the idea that ideas are like seeds, that you plant them in the right soil and they grow. That if you put an idea in the right person's brain, it will grow. That is something that exactly parallels. It's still around, is my point. In the word seminar, for example, where it literally means like a place of seeds. That's where you get seeds, semen, seminar, and ideas. Ideas get put in your brain in a seminar. So Socrates continues to kind of talk and think about this stuff. And he says down here at the bottom of 22, where he says he's not going to plant it in the wrong place. He's not going to plant his ideas in a book. He's going to plant his ideas in living minds. He says, no, that is not likely. In the garden of letters, he will sow and plant, but only for the sake of recreation and amusement. So in written letters, he's going to sowing and planting is what you do with seeds, only in the sake of recreation and amusement. So the smart person, he might write things down in a book. It's not bad to write things down in a book, but just for recreation and amusement, just for fun, you might write things down in a book. He will write them down as memorials to be treasured against the forgetfulness of old age, by himself or by any other old man who is treading the same path. So, Socrates says, one good thing that writing is for, to remind you of something you already knew but you forgot. So if you know something, you write it down and then you read it again and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. He says that's very useful. And maybe for other old people who are the same, it may help them remember things. But that's not really what words are for. They're not really for books. But you might like them. He will rejoice at beholding their tender growth, and while others are refreshing their souls with banqueting and the like, this will be a pastime in which his days are spent. So that if you write your ideas down, you can review them later. Socrates thinks but notice what he's doing here. Socrates thinks that writing something down in a book is a great way to help you remember your own ideas. But he doesn't think you should be seeing ideas for the first time in a book. Because if you see ideas, if you like, I may write something down in a book. Years go by, I forget, I read it again, and I remember. This has actually happened. I read a book when I was 21, and I read it recently, and I was like, oh shit, I totally forgot that I knew that. It helped me remember my own thoughts. Socrates thinks that's fine, because you can understand your own thoughts, but he's concerned that if you give the book to somebody else and they look at it, they're not going to understand it. And then because he says writing things down is useful for remembering, but not for learning. Learning is new because remembering is when you learn something you used to know but you forgot. But he thinks that learning should be something new, and that's not good, says Socrates. Books are not good for that. Um, um, and Phaedrus says, a pastime, Socrates, as noble as the other is ignoble. The pastime of a man who can be amused by serious talk and can discourse merrily about justice and the like. Meaning, it's like fun to write stuff down. It's fun to remember your ideas and all this stuff, but it's not real learning. Don't confuse it with real learning. Okay, cool, guys. We're on page 23 now. We're on page 23, and we only have like less than 1.5. We basically have a page and a third of a page, and then we're done with this goddamn book. It's amazing. And Socrates says, true, Phaedrus. But far nobler is the serious pursuit of the dialectician. Remember, dialectics is giving and taking. Dialectics is giving and taking things back and forth. Again, it's when you learn from a conversation, that's dialectics. When you learn from one way to think about it is when you learn from a book, it's one direction, from the book into your brain. But dialectics means to give and take, to give and take, to give and take. So in class, I tell you something, you tell me something. I tell you something, I respond. You respond to me, I respond to you. You respond to me, I respond to you. It's a different kind of learning because it goes back and forth like this, whereas books just go one direction into your brain, from the book into your brain, and it doesn't go back and forth. But dialectics, conversation, the classroom we're in, ideas go back and forth. I have an idea, and then you guys have an idea. We go back and forth and figure it out together. Okay. He says, but far nobler is the serious pursuit of the dialectician, meaning much nobler than writing. And this is also serious. Writing is silly and not noble. Ignoble means opposite of noble. But nobler far is the serious pursuit of the dialectician, who finding a congenial soul means the right kind of mind to understand. That's you guys. You guys are my congenial souls. By the help of science, sows and plants therein words which are able to help themselves and he who planted them, and are not unfruitful, but have in them a seed which others brought up in different soils render immortal, making the possessors of it happy to the utmost extent of human happiness. Putting ideas into your minds allows them to kind of live and grow, but also you guys give me ideas. Like being in a room with you, it's not just that I give ideas to you, and they grow in you, but you guys give just being in front of you, I get all kinds of good ideas from you. You guys always say such smart stuff. And Socrates says that is a sort of much more valuable thing to do with your time, because with the help sows and plants the words which are able to help themselves and him who planted them. and are not unfruitful, but having them a seed which others brought up in different soils render immortal, making the possessors happy. Okay, cool. And that is the end of that video.